Well, I'm back on the Ford Taurus again. We were just getting ready to take it out on the road for the first time after replacing the heads and a whole bunch of items on here. And I noticed coolant leaking on the ground, and it came from down in here. The transmission cooler line goes into the radiator right there, and the nut that holds the fitting is loose, and it's allowing coolant to drip out. So I'm going to just replace the radiator. I'm not going to try to tighten that nut. As old as this car is, it's got the original radiator, so I don't see the point in trying to patch it. I'm just going to replace it. So the first thing you're going to have to do is drain the coolant, and in order to do that, you're going to have to get this dust cover off. It's held on by some 8mm bolts and some other bolts. I don't have the metric for this one, so I found that a 7/32 little socket will work for that. And what I'm going to do is be pausing this video and going step by step. The driver's side of the vehicle, once you get that dust cover removed, up underneath here is the petcock for draining the fluid. So you'll just loosen that, drain the fluid out. I used one of these Rubbermaid totes. Works real good. It's low enough to get the fluid in there, and that works great. And by the way, you want to do this on a cold engine. All right, the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to remove the battery and the battery tray underneath so that we can get to the upper radiator hose. And we're going to move this fuse box out of the way. And I'll show you how to get this thing out of the way here in just a minute. Yeah, so my battery tray is, the bolts are pretty corroded. Not sure if I'm going to be successful getting these out or not, but the whole reason we want to do that, get this out of the way so we can get to this hose and get to the clamp back there. Let me see if I can get it out. As luck would have it, this the bolts are so corroded. This one's stripped out. There's no head on that one. The washer's busted under this one. I'm just going to vacuum it out and just remove this fuse box and relay box out of the way, and hopefully with that wire harness out of the way, that'll give me enough room to get to that hose clamp. Now the way you get this relay and fuse block out is there's tabs right here. Oh, I got some glare going on. So you want to get a screwdriver, lift this out, and lift this one out. Lift that side up first, and then come over here and lift this tab up and pull this side, and the whole thing slides right up. So I've lifted both tabs, and there it comes. It slides right up, and we can put it over here out of the way, and we can see the hose clamp. And so I was able to just put some channel locks back there and get that clamp off. Now I'm not going to go back with this factory clamp. I learned my lesson, because over here on the thermostat, that factory clamp leaked. So I put a regular screw type on and just left this on because I did not feel like pulling the hose off and spilling coolant everywhere. I might help you to have a little pry tool like this. I was able to get back there and get behind that hose and pull it to the end of that neck coming out of the radiator. So now I've got it loose, and now I'll pull it out of the way. Now the next thing we're going to do is pull the wire harnesses off of the cooling fans, and there is a hole right here where you push a little tab in. So I can get this to focus. You push that tab in right there, and it pushes it gets the release. It's got a little catch. You push that in and then pull on the harness, and it'll pull out. Got the left side harness out. Now it's time to do the one on the right side. So this wiring harness has these strain relief catches that go in. There's 3 of them, one up here, one down there, and one right there. And then down below, there's another connector, and that goes to the resistor that's part of the fan speed circuit. Okay, so for that connector, for that resistor, you gotta get a little small screwdriver like this, go up underneath that catch right there, lift up on it, and then pull the harness out. Okay, now so to get the fans out, they only have one bolt at the top. Take the bolt out, and the fan will come forward and then slide out. It's got a little piece on the bottom of the shroud that holds it in place. Now, theoretically, you don't have to take the fans out to do this. Some guys have done it. The only reason I'm getting them out of the way is so that I have more room to get my arms in here to get to that transmission cooler line and deal with those. That's the only reason I'm moving these fans out of the way. If you've got skinny arms, then, you know, more power to you. If not, getting the fans out of the way is a big help. Now this transmission line has a keeper that helps hold it in place. And I'm going to use my pry tool. You can use a screwdriver, whatever you got. And we'll just move that keeper out of the way on both sides. And then we've got another tool that we need to use to actually get that line out. Okay, so there's the keeper. It's sitting down there. And there's where the line goes in. And I highly recommend getting a rag and some degreaser and clean this off really good, because this is for the transmission and you don't want any debris getting inside that line. And once you get the line off, what I like to do is put a piece of plastic and a rubber band or some tape around it to keep stuff from going inside of it. So the next thing you'll need is a set of spring lock disconnects. I'm thinking the blue one is what's going to work on this size line. I've even got some inside here that are kind of small, so whichever one I use, I'll show, whichever one works the best. So I'm going to start off with the blue one and push it all the way in. It's sticking out just a little bit. It hasn't spread the spring apart just yet. I'll use my pry bar or a screwdriver and push that all the way in, and then the line should be able to pull straight out. So that worked perfect. I pushed it in with the pry bar and was able to wiggle it out. And of course, it's going to leak some transmission fluid, so have something under your car to grab it or absorb it. And then we'll move down to the lower transmission cooler line. All right, so I got the top one off and put some plastic with some tape around it. Now that lower one down there is really hard to get the tool with the angle on it, this tool here. So I'm going to go with the little short blue one I got and try it and see how that goes. Well, now the real fun begins. To get to that lower transmission line, I'm gonna have to get this bottom radiator hose connection off to get to it, because it's up above. I can't reach it from up top. And in order to get under the car low enough, good enough, I'm gonna have to jack this thing up. So we're going to jack it up, put some stands under it, and get this radiator, lower radiator hose connection taken off. Okay, so we got the car jacked up on stands under the frame. Safety pins put in the jack, both of them. And I've got the parking brake set, and one of the rear tires is chocked. Okay, so now that I've got the car up, in order to get to getting this hose off with this T-section here, we got two 8mm bolts there and one right up here. And we'll remove those so we can get to the clamp to get that out, so then we can get to the transmission cooler line. Okay, so in order to get this cooling hose that goes into the bottom of the radiator and this one that goes up to the reservoir, we're gonna have to get this bracket out of the way. There's two 8mm bolts that go there, and one goes here and one above it. I've got to get that last one right there. It's kind of a challenge to get to. This bracket will come out, and then you can get to that hose clamp. So there we go. The bracket's out of the way. There's the hose clamp, and you can see the bottom of our radiator here. And now we're going to get that out of the way, get that transmission line, cooler line out of the way. And the radiator actually drops through the bottom, and there are some other bolts that we're going to be taking off at the top and the front of the vehicle to drop this radiator out. It is also worth noting that when you go to take all this apart, that you have your tub to catch the coolant, because even though we've already drained the radiator, there's going to be more. Son of a bitch. And so as suspected, I did have to use the smaller of my tools for these spring lock type connections, and I was able to get it out to this far here. You can see there's a little crimp that they put on that line, and so you push your tool all the way up to that crimp, and then the hose will slide out. And I still got the water hose in the way, so I'm going to move this water hose out of the way, this radiator hose, and finish getting this thing out of here and we'll move forward. Okay, now that I've got that transmission line pulled out down below, I wrapped a rag around it. I couldn't get a plastic bag put around it, so I just put a rag around it to keep crap from getting inside there, and put a pan down there to catch the transmission fluid that will drain out of that cooler. So what you want to do is, your condenser is bolted to your radiator, and there's an 8mm bolt there and one over here that I'm going to take out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop a wire through that bolt hole, and I'm going to bring it up here and tie it off up here somewhere, and to support that condenser coil, because I do not want to fight the condenser coil and the radiator at the same time. Okay, so what I did is I got some heavy gauge wire. I made a hook, and I was able to put it underneath there, pull this forward, and I pushed this thin wire through. Use some long nose pliers, flat pliers, and I backed this bolt out just a little bit to wrap it around there. And so we're going to do that on both sides, and then I'll show you the bolts on the bottom that need to come out. Okay, so the bottom bolts that hold the condenser in, this is the condenser, are down here. They mount to this plastic piece sticking out of the radiator, and I've already removed one on this side. There's two on the driver's side, one that holds this line in place on this bracket, and then the other one up there holding the passenger side of the condenser in. And then there's another one on the other side. Now you can get to these through the bumper, right there on this side and on this side as well. You got to move that hose over out of the way a little bit, and then we will remove these brackets and drop the radiator. All right, I'm ready to drop the radiator. But somebody has replaced this hose before. I can't get to the hose clamp. They used a regular hose clamp, a screw type like what I have over here, and it's really small, and I can't get a wrench or anything on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this off, and I'm going to pull the whole radiator out with the hose on, and then take care of it. Okay, I've got the radiator out. You can see there's this hose clamp that was giving me a lot of fits. Couldn't get anything on it to get it off. So what I'm going to do now is, in reverse order, I'm going to put the new radiator back in. I hope this video helps you out. It's saving me a lot of money doing my own work. Hopefully you'll save a lot of money doing your own work. These little tricks that I showed you with supporting that condenser, it'll save you a lot of aggravation. I've watched other guys do this on YouTube, and they seem to struggle with that condenser being in the way. So I hope this helps. Like, subscribe if you want, and if you have any questions or comments, put them down below. Thank you.